Hey, it's John, and I wanted to show you a little bit of how I might create this image as an Illustrator file and kind of go through a little step-by-step demo here. So right now I have this photograph of a tiger I airbrushed years ago, and I am going to keep all of this stuff on one layer. So I can work in multiple layers, right? I'm going to add a layer and I'm going to call it outline layer. And then this layer down here, I'm actually going to bring the transparency, the opacity down on this image. So I'll bring it down about, that's fine. Somewhere in there is good. And then I'll lock this layer. So I have this off to the side here so that I can see it in color, and then I have all this so that I can see it, but I'll be able to create my outlines in a way that allow me to properly work over my reference material. So I'm just going to start in, and I'm going to use my pen tool. And pen tool is pretty interesting because it is the lifeblood of vector art. And what you need to do is drag and click and drag and click. And it kind of releases everything so that you can do whatever it is you want to do to get your shape. If I drag over here and click and hold and then pull, I'm going to get a nice curve. And don't worry about being perfect, because you can always go back and adjust. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take this whole thing and I'm going to make it transparent. Meaning I'm not going to have any fill on it. I just want to get my shape in here. And so I'm starting with these nice snarl lines that are on this big cat. I love, love, love the creases that get into a big cat's face. Its muzzle when it snarls just looks so cool. And this guy with his wide eyes, I mean, he's feral and ferocious. And I don't know if he's on the defense or if he is maybe just incredibly aggressive. He's got some prey in front of him, but whatever it is, it's pretty cool. So I'm going to make my way around this shape. And then boom, I got some. So for now I'm just going to make it black. And I don't know whether I'm going to keep all the texture in it or not. I think I'd like to. I'd like some fur texture. Be pretty cool. And you can put as much detail in as you want. It's up to you. You get to decide. Do you want it to be less realistic and more graphic in nature? You can do that. I tend to be a little bit more of a realism guy, which can get me into trouble because it usually takes a long time to make stuff work that way. And the fur is interesting because the fur is different shades, or I should say values, nope, hues of color, and they change color as they move throughout this tiger's face. So we kind of have these black shapes that I'm working on that are these, very specific areas of black markings in the hair. And then we end up with a really pretty white on the muzzle, some white around the eyes, and then around these black shapes, markings, we end up with a little bit of brown that fades into white. So it's always a way to work, right? In whatever program you're in, you just need to know what it is, your benefits and your limitations are. Our limitations in Illustrator are primarily that we're not painting, okay? And by that I mean we're not working with pixels, we're working with shapes. And that's why Adobe Illustrator is known as a vector program. Everything is geometry, so everything is a flat shape, whether it's filled or not. Alright, so we got that. And I mean, you could spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours on Illustrator. But what's really cool is the look that you want, you can achieve in here, so sometimes art takes a while, anything worth doing. Sometimes you surprise yourself, it goes really quickly, but depending on what it is that you're actually doing and what kind of effects you're putting on it is going to determine the look of what you achieve. And sometimes the deadline that you have from a client is going to determine either A, the amount of time that you do or do not have to put into it, or the amount of sleep you're not going to get for several days, because sometimes it takes a long time. And I've had my share of late night to all-nighters in my career. So there we go. So we got, I kind of like these little bits here too. And I like being a little bit abstract with them as well. It looks to me like there's 4 dots there. It's good to know how to interpret vector art from a photo. It's really good because to have reference is really handy. A lot of people seem to believe that artists, real artists, don't use reference. And I have never met a real artist then, because all the professional artists I know use reference. They photograph models for their paintings, or they'll physically get something, a sculpture of something, or again a model that might suit their needs, right? And then they go to work, and they don't necessarily copy it verbatim, but they'll use it as just what I said, reference. And so the cool thing about reference is that it really exists, and it helps you to see how something may look in real life, and it can help you to get on the same page as a client, because rather than just throwing darts at an image, I prefer to know, what does the client want? Like, what are the expectations? Because if I know what expectations are, then I know my target. I know what I'm aiming for. There's no worse job than to have a deadline and the clock is running, and now I got to figure out what I'm going to render, but there's absolutely no direction. That is a painful place to live, because a lot of times companies just, they don't care. They got their deadline and they just need it done. And you say, well, how could you be in trouble for that? Because you can't do what you can't do, right? You need reference, you need something to agree on. Well, not everybody agrees with that, and so, you know, people are generally pretty reasonable, but if there's a deadline for a reason. The client needs it, or you're up against the clock with printing deadlines, you know, or you're not going to make the newsstand, and so you've got to have a wild spirit about you, I think, to be able to venture into this world, because it's not for the faint of heart. And don't let that scare you, because it's all it means is that you've got to be able to move when you've got the information, and sometimes you just got to wait. All right, so that's something. We got something going on there, and that's looking pretty neat, I think. And so maybe I'll do just a little bit more here. And you can see how I'm selecting, right? Maybe you can't, I don't know. But I'm working on keeping it looking very organic. I don't really want to make this too graphic looking in nature, or line looking in nature, because like I said, I tend to like things to look a little bit more realistic or natural. So it's a lot of clicks, right? It's a lot of clicks. Okay, let's see what we got. So I've got some more fur to move into over here. Because I'm probably going to come back over this black at some point with some more naturalistic looking shapes, I don't mind that this is a little bit less organic looking. I keep using the term organic. Why do I use that? Because organic means of natural origin, or biological in form. That it doesn't look like it was machined, or let's see, there we go. Or made out of a mold or something. It looks like it was born in nature, that it is a real organic shape. Okay. No, I can't. I think. And you gotta know how to build this stuff, because you gotta pick a place to go and go, all right, I'm gonna start with the darks and build my shapes up around that, and then you can adjust on the fly and add everything around it that you might want to add. Like, I should probably just make all this black over here. You know, I could have worked opposite. I could have made the whole shape of the tiger's head black and then worked the other colors into it, but I just chose not to. And there's a little bit of positive negative space to get your head around, because everything I'm working on now is negative space in my mind, because it's dark. And the sorry, I'm getting over this cold. And the positive space would be anything kind of white. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to say that. There we go. So I'm working on all my negative space here first. I'll come back into this and do kind of this hole where my mouse is right now with the cursor. I'll put that line in there a little later. Oh, and don't forget Command Z, or I think on a PC it's Control Z. That's a really nice opportunity to make your mistakes go away. So there's a great example of line art and negative space on this part of the picture so far. Let's make layer 1 go away, and so you can see the details there. Again, graphic in nature, but fairly organic. Okay. Just for yucks, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to give us a pupil, and I'm going to give us this pupil up here. You know, an eye isn't a perfectly round shape in nature. There's eyelids and stuff going on, and so I'm going to bring that in. I'm going to bring, but I just want to have something to look at, looking back at me, and so I'm actually going to see here. I need to hit don't show again when that pops up, or I'm going to lose my mind. There we go. Don't show again. Thank you. I appreciate your help. But you're just telling me you told me, so I don't need that from you. I can get that in other places. There's something really cool you can do later when you're actually putting all of the shapes together at the end, and I'll show you that. It's in Pathfinder. You may already know about that, and if you do, good for you. And if you don't, you're going to really benefit from Pathfinder because it's an awesome tool. Alright, so let's go ahead. I'm going to make a placeholder for myself here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these two shapes, the eye, the open eye, and then the pupil, and I'm going to go to Arrange and bring to front. Those are going to bring those in front of this shape. But you wouldn't know it, right? Because it's black on black on black. So I'm going to make this color just a green. I'm going to take off the outline. I'm going to knock it back one, and now we've got that eye there. And if you really want to get crazy, because you want to see it a little bit better, you can give yourself a little white pupil or a white highlight on the pupil. Hello, give me that. And then if you really want to get crazy and add some effect to it, you can copy and enlarge and knock it back just a little bit, and then we'll go to blur, and I'm going to add a little Gaussian blur, all these years I don't know what it is. That's okay. And then I'm going to make it a little transparent, just a little bit. There you go. So if I were to take a big broad swath of color and put it behind, and then if I take the pick tool, the color picking tool, and I'm just going to select that color, there you go. We got something going on. And I selected that too. I'm going to group these, and again, just for yucks, I'm going to select behind, and I'm going to select this brown. I'm going to blur behind, which you can't see right now, and then I'm going to go to kind of light orange yellow. All right, so we really can't see the blur very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give us a little bit more of an outline of the blur. Yeah, we can see it there. Looks, I don't like how it looks. I'm going to go to properties. I'm going to go to the effects here. I'm going to throw it in the garbage, and I'm going to try it again. And I'm going to preview it because I want to see how it's going to look. And so the bigger I make this blur, the more I get closer to a natural look of fur. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the black, except I'm going to make it less severe in the blur. So I'll probably only do it about maybe 15, about half of that. Let's see what that looks like. That's cool. It's got a little bit of a weird kind of a blue in it. So I'm going to go, something I'll do frequently is, if I'm in CMYK, it's 100% K, mix everything in, make it a really black. There we go. It's kind of nice. And I'll make that a little bit transparent too. So we got something working. I'm going to continue on with this, and I'll give you a little bit more next time we meet.